today let's talk about paintbrushes. So if you look behind me here, we have a lot of paintbrushes here at the store. And the reason why we have a lot of different paintbrushes is because they're all needed and everyone has their favorite and they all work better for certain applications. So one of the things that is important to think about when you get a paintbrush is what kind of paint are you using? Are you using an oil-based paint or a latex-based paint? And you might say, why? Why does that matter? Well, it matters a lot because one of those paints has water in it. And when you take a natural fiber, a natural bristle, which would be similar to your own hair, when you take a shower, your hair all goes limp. Now, if you take a latex-based paint and you use it with a natural bristle brush, the brush goes floppy and it works terribly, which is why you need a synthetic bristle, like a nylon. So the bristle really, really matters when you're painting. You got to use the right bristle to match the right type of paint. So here at the store, we have a lot of different types of brushes in the latex. And a lot of it has to do with personal preference, but a lot of it is also quality. If you want a really nice paint job, you got to use a really good quality brush. If you use a cheap brush, you're not going to get the results you want. You're going to be frustrated. It's going to be hard to get the paint on. It's going to be streaky. It's going to look terrible. Spend a little extra money, use a really nice paintbrush, and you're going to be a much happy painter. So some of these different brushes, so our top shelf brush here is the Corona brush. They're made in Florida by a family business, handmade brushes, and these brushes they perform. You can wash them over and over and over again, and they really hold up well. This brush here is the Vegas nylon. It's very soft bristles, so you're going to get that really nice finish. You have this one here, which is a little bit stiffer. The tips aren't as smooth. They aren't quite as soft, but will give you a very smooth finish. Why a soft brush? Why a stiff brush? Well, a softer brush is going to put more paint on, but it's not going to cut in generally as well. A stiff brush will allow you to really cut in so maybe you can avoid using tape. If you're doing 2 coats, which is recommended, versus 1 heavy coat, you're going to get a much better paint job. Using a slightly stiffer brush will allow you to have a much smoother coat and a much better finish. And depending on what you're doing and your time frame is going to give you different ideas on what brush you might want to use. The Purdy is also a handmade American brush, made in Oregon. Years ago, Purdy really was the big name. The Corona brushes has really moved into their market share, and a lot of professional painters now are preferring the Corona over the Purdy these days. The Worcester is an American brush too, made in Ohio, and these brushes are machine made, which is why they're a little less, but when it comes for bang for your buck, really great brush. Now, if you look at all the different sizes, if you use a really large brush, it's going to make you tired. For example, if you're using a 4-inch brush painting siding, unless you're really accustomed to it, you're going to be incredibly tired. So a 3-inch brush might work better, a 2-inch. You want enough paint on the brush so that you can get a smooth job. So if you're painting with an artist brush to do something large, it's going to really come out bad. So you want to kind of pick your brush for what you're doing. We can help you through the process if you're wondering. These are kind of like a throwaway, call this like a good quality throwaway brush where you're going to use it once or twice. You want something that's pretty good. You don't have to feel guilty about throwing it out. The soft tip is a great choice. It really does a nice job for the money. We have the Picasso, which is a foreign-made brush. They make these here. They're an oval brush, which is a very nice shape, holds a lot of paint. A lot of people refer to the Picasso as, if you look at like the pinnacle of Japanese cars, maybe being Toyota and Honda, and then you say, well, the Hyundais and the Korean cars, the Kias, are very good, but they're not quite as good as them. This is kind of like as we call it, your Hyundai of the paintbrush. A very good brush, a little less money, maybe not as good, but does a great job, and the price reflects that. So when we're talking clear finishes, you're talking polyurethanes. And when you are talking polyurethane finishes, you have oil-based and latex as well. A lot of times for a oil-based finish, you're going to want a bristle brush. Sometimes people use these flat applicator pads at the top as well. A water-based poly is going to go on with a regular brush or one of those applicators. Seems like more often than not when people do floors, they tend to like to use brushing, but every hardwood guy has their own kind of tricks on what they like to do. One of the questions we had was, what is cut in? And when you talk about stiff brushes, soft brushes, what is cut in? Well, when you're cutting into the ceiling and you want that nice crisp line up against your ceiling or up against trim where you're changing colors, and you want to have a nice crisp line. A couple ways to do it. One is to use tape. The other way is with skill and a very good paintbrush. So if you have a really good paintbrush, that's going to allow you to get a nice smooth finish without having to waste your time taping. And there's tricks to that as far as how to put the paint on the brush, loading the brush with enough paint. There's a lot of things to it. But a very skilled person can cut in very well with a brush and mimic taping, if you will, with a lot less labor. We have other types of like disposable brushes, which is called the chip brush and foam brush. You know, foam brushes do vary. We sell like an American-made version, which does very well. They're very inexpensive. They're throwaways. Some people really like them for polyurethane. You also have the chip brush. This is a bristle, natural bristle brush, not so great for latex. But if you're doing a little quick little touch-up, it's a good way to do it. You throw it away with no guilt because very inexpensive. So that's kind of your basics on paint brushes. A lot of it is comfort, and a lot of it is using the right brush for the job so you get a really, really good result.